Welcome back to Pagitt Radio, broadcasting live out of the Twin Cities. Our pre-Thanksgiving holiday special. How did I say it's not a special? It's not a holiday special.
Yeah,
I just
you
have
act like Charlie Brown is going to come on or
I
something.
just have in my brain as like the holiday special. It's totally not the holiday special. But things are going to be special today because Joan Stephan is going to be showing up here in the studio in segment 2, and she's coming about 11, and my guess is that she's going to come to that door right there that enters into the studio.
Should we have a bet?
Well, I think this might be a role for the sidekick to say when the doorbell rings to meet her and greet her and invite her in.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, I do.
I'm relegated to. Should I put on my apron?
Well, I think if you're going to eat a candy while we're having a radio show,
It's not. It's
yes,
a cough drop.
then you are relegated to answering the door.
Last week I was troubled
Carlton
because
the doorman.
I was coughing in the mic.
Oh, and it
I've
bothered
been
you?
trying to. Yes, I was trying to upgrade my
Let me ask you,
sound presence.
Victoria, did you go back over the show and watch it again and critique yourself?
I didn't. I have a real trouble watching myself on video.
All right.
I have a phobia about it.
Because I'll just send you a list every week of the things I think you can do better if you think that would help.
My improvement laundry list.
Yes. Here's some things I think you could
Yeah, because
spend
I'm sure
some
that
time
would work
on.
really well for me.
I think it'll motivate you in a really positive in a really
When I
positive
don't
kind
come
of way.
next week, listeners, you'll know why.
Or will you sit there quietly sulking because Doug was mean to you?
I might cry.
I won't be mean to you. No. All right, we're going to we're going to hear some of one of Victoria's secrets. You know, she's a person with a name that's quite famous. This is our Victoria's Secret music for today. All right, Victoria, tell us what is the topic of Victoria's secret today?
I want to talk about the secret to success.
Oh, really?
Yes. I've
a
got it.
You do.
You've been working out your holiday
That's
issues.
a little presumptuous, isn't it? Like, all right, I'm ready to hear it. What's what are Victoria's secrets to success?
I've got one big one.
Are these going to be religious? Because we're going to talk a lot of religion in the second half an hour. And is this
No.
religious? Is this religious success?
I
Is this
have a
success
new
before Lord
theory
God?
that I'm developing.
Yes.
That the secret to success is failure.
Oh boy.
So I've been thinking
You're
about
like
it.
doing some postmodern twist of the notion of success.
Well, I've been thinking about it ever since my failed marathon attempt.
Oh.
Because that was a big deal to not be able to run that.
Mhm.
And I worked really hard toward it, and I got close, but I had injuries, and so we talked about that. And I'm still dealing with injuries, and it's been tough. My life as a runner has been tough.
Has been curtailed?
Yes, it has been. Now I sprained my ankle, and now I'm off my ankle. I've been off for 2.5 weeks.
Oh.
So it's a real bummer.
How are you not swinging from a rope in your garage?
Well, I don't know.
I didn't want to put that dark thought in your head right now. Is that starting to sound better? Wait till that turkey doesn't come out of the oven tomorrow.
So
I'm just saying I'd be totally freaked out right now if I had to go 2.5 weeks.
It's terrible.
Oh.
It's really, really terrible. It's not as bad as when I was in the boot in the summer.
Das
That
Boot.
was truly dark. I think my eyes looked extremely vacant for some time because people were worried about me. Like I was in a bad place. So it's not that bad.
So you have discovered a secret to success in your own failure.
I think that I've learned more from my failures as a runner.
Yes.
And I've been kind of fearless with running, like taking on too much. It's part of why I've had trouble.
Oh, interesting. So your fearlessness has driven you to not achieve what you wanted.
But it's also taught me a great deal. And so in terms of like running specifically, I know a lot of people talk about mind over matter. That's not an issue for me. I'm too good at mind over matter. I've had to learn matter over mind.
Oh, like you just disassociate from the physical
and like lose
world.
whole toenails and don't even notice, like it's and worse, worse than that. So anyway, I think that in terms of like my phase of life, learning to listen to my body, it's so important that, and I'm learning that these failures have brought me to that.
Yes.
And that's a kind of success. And so long term, I think sometimes when you take big risks, fail to do things, the return, even if you fail, the return can be much higher than if you don't try at all.
Oh yeah, sure. Yeah.
Another area where I'm quite fearless is in the kitchen. And I'm a fairly good cook, I think. But I'm also accident prone and extremely, what's the word?
Clumsy?
Absent-minded. Well, yeah. I'm absent-minded and I'm accident prone. Extremely so. And so it's amazing that I get anything cooked.
Like you walk away from the stove and burn things on the stove?
I just did it yesterday. I was writing an email for Doug Pagitt Radio, and I burned all of my bread for my stuffing. I literally walked away from bread in the oven to write an email, forgot all about it. But what I make up for my accident-prone and absent-mindedness in innovation and creativity.
Like people have never had such great toasted stuffing in their life.
In that instance, it's not the best example in that case. I've had times where I've put the wrong thing in something or whatever, and sometimes something better happens as a result because I have to get innovative. I also tend to be better when I'm working intuitively, and so anything that forces me, I don't do it enough, but anything that forces me. So I've decided that I want to try to take some of these failures running in my cooking world and apply them more broadly.
Oh.
And I'm sure other people are different. I'm not someone who does well with moderation anyway. Like, I'm not a moderate personality. I kind of either don't do something or I do it too big.
Yeah.
So why not just do it too big than not at all?
So in Victoria's Secrets of Success, which is failure, how does one ever get out of that spiral?
I don't know that you have to. I think you just live there.
So success is a norm. I mean, failure is a norm.
Yeah, like I think I need to make it a norm in my writing life.
Yeah.
If I want to do what I want to do. So I've always been very private. We've talked about this on the show. But if I want to let my writing have a place in the world or see if it has a place, I have to be willing to fail big. And I've had this kind of ridiculous notion that I might quit writing if I failed too big. But really, I've been writing so long, and I don't think that that's ever going to, like, it occurred to me that I will not stop writing. Like, it's just...
Yeah, very good.
I've been writing since I was little. So we'll see. I'll have to get back to you.
I think you're onto it. Well, I mean, I think you're absolutely onto it. I think, in fact, failure... I think it seems like there's two kinds, right? There's a kind of failure like where the thing you wanted to do or accomplish or create now does not exist, right? Like it now didn't happen and never ever will happen, right? So like, I don't know, you wanted to bake the bread and you wanted to have it in the stuffing and you burned it and now that's it. That's just like it, right? So then you start over. That's one kind of failure. But then there's the kinds of failures that are truly generative of something else. You know what I mean? Like the kinds that you would say, well, that didn't work, so next time I'm going to do this. Because the bread cooking one, which I think is a great example, you knew what you wanted to do, which is get it out after 12 minutes. And you know what you'll do next time, which is get it out after 12 minutes. And then there was this time where you didn't do that.
Right.
And that's just that, right? So it's like, well, whoopsie, didn't work. You sort of fix it and go back to doing it the way you would have done it anyway. There's that kind of failure, like, geez, it's just ridiculous, like, this happens to me all the time. Like I go to run an errand somewhere and I leave something at home and I have to drive back home and I'm like,
I hate it.
And those are the kinds of failures that seem to me one should take on and say, I don't want to be that person anymore. Then there's these kinds of failures that change the whole equation, right? They change you, a relationship failure or a running kind of failure. It's not now you're going to be like, oh, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to run when I don't have a foot injury. That's how I'm going to solve that problem.
Right.
Like, no, that doesn't really capture it, right? The kind of runner you're going to be in the future is created because of that failure. And don't you think so that there's like these two different kinds, the kinds that you just never ever do again, and then the kind that reshapes you to the level that you're open to that? Because this reminds me, I had an interaction with a with a Christian singer.
Oh.
And I was working at a church, and this guy was coming into the church to do a concert. It's still confusing to me as to why this was happening, but it was happening. So this fellow was coming in to do a concert, and my job was to be his liaison. Right? And I'm not even French, so this was a lot of work. Like I had to be, I had to be cross cultural.
Liaison to whom? To the congregation?
Yeah, the liaison between the church and him. So I was the one, met him at the airport and got him there, and
a welcoming guy.
And this cat is just full of nothing but requests. This guy.
Oh really?
Oh my
He's
lands!
prima donna.
I am not kidding you. Like he literally at one point said to me, "My rider says that it's room temperature grapefruit juice. This is slightly chilled." Like
dear.
it was winter. It was in my car. Like, yeah. He was bothered by the fact that it hadn't gone to room temperature for his voice. Right. Like bring your own grapefruit juice if you do. Okay. Right. So it's one of these cats. Right.
Oh, dear.
So then he says to me, "Hey, are you going to serve as my I didn't call it a bodyguard, but basically my interference, like my bodyguard?" And I'm like, "Well, why would you need a bodyguard?" He said, "Well, because one time I was at this concert and I was doing this performance, and afterward, this guy came up to me and he liked my music and everything, but was a bit of a stalker. And I tried to sort of get around him, get away from him, and he physically assaulted me, like grabbed me and didn't want to let go, and this kind of thing." So he's like, "So I'd really like that. Are you going to be the guy that keeps that from happening?" I'm like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
I've got the physical fortitude to do that without much problem. And, if I could, So, yeah, I'd be glad to. So he goes and does his concert. And then during the concert, this guy says, "Can I tell you all a story of one of the times I was so deeply affected and changed?" And he tells the story about this guy assaulting him. And how much he learned from that, and how great it was, and how God's mercy was shown to him. And this particular guy held a view of that God ordains all things that happen. So he's pitching this line. So I just knew that even though this guy, was this altercation thing happened, that God's hand was on it all along, and I'm sitting there looking like that, thinking, and now you never want that to happen again.
Yeah.
Like you said to me like 3 hours ago, can you be the guy that makes sure that thing never happens again? But then you stay, and I don't think he's just being a hypocrite. I think he had a problem with failure. I think it's more than that. I think it's worse than that. I think it's more a bigger deal than just that he's like using a really good story.
Yeah, that's the first thing I
to sort of make a point. I think he's somebody who thought that was really powerful. It really did change me. And now I want to do everything I can to never let that happen again.
Well, there is that, yes.
Right, and this is what I think part of your secrets of success is bringing up, is this notion that there's the kind of failure that's just like, I'm not doing that again. I mean, I knock something over on my computer and spill water all over it. I'm going to put my water glass somewhere else next time. Right. It's not like, boy, that. You know what? If next week I were to spill on my computer again, that would really be, I wonder who I would be now in the midst of that and what kind of deepening is going on. Right. So here's a guy who's saying like that event was so meaningful, so powerful. Yeah. And now he wants to
shut it out. Yeah.
Builds it into his rider.
And we do have a tendency to want to protect ourselves, and then in doing that, and we want to protect other people too. Sometimes I want to protect my kids from things. I want them to have certain painful experiences, but then I find, well, that's not helping them move along their path.
Yeah, and how does one fetter out the difference between the failure that is burning the bread, spilling the water on your computer, that you're like, just don't do that again, because what happened then doesn't allow you to have
do it again, like
doesn't but you would mitigate against it, right? You would do what you can.
Yes. Normally, I'm not allowed to leave the kitchen when I have something in the oven. I need to reinstitute that rule.
Yeah, like we said to our kids, like we taught them when they're cooking, that the handle always points to the side or to the back of the stove and not off the front of the stove, which isn't something one had to worry much about when you were living by yourself or it was just two of you. But you get kids in the mix.
Yep,
they're running through and they're bashing into things, and all of a sudden there's a skillet full of hotness flying through the air, and that's no good. Yeah, so there's those kinds of failures, mistakes, errors, which I think on those we should just say, look, those things happen. You don't beat people up for it. Yeah, it's okay. But then there's these kind that really change us, and they make us into new people, and those are the failures we should stay open to, right? And I guess I don't know that you could stay open to one without the other. I mean, maybe, let's say that somebody decides that they're going to use a whole new cooking preparation for their turkey on Thanksgiving, and that somehow creates this great harmony of the 18 people that are there that say, "Boy, this was the memorable Thanksgiving. We're gonna
always remember that. Hey, you know what? It could be a colossal failure, and we'll learn a lot, and it will be great." And my daughter's in this youth performing circus, and every year the classes start out, and a lot of the classes, kids are doing stuff they've never done. Like the unicycle class is always great. The beginning unicyclers are the best because nobody knows how to unicycle. And they just fall off for weeks and weeks. They come in there for an hour and they just fall off. And then eventually they start to stay on a little bit.
Yeah.
And then they stay on a little bit longer. And before you know it, they're juggling fire. And you just go, wow, it's so interesting how they just have to keep falling off for so long. But there's something about that falling off each time that moves them towards staying on.
Right. Because they're going to become a different person because they fell off. They're going to have a skill. They're going to have an ability. They're going to have an inner balance. They're going to have all the confidence. They're going to have all this stuff.
Yep.
And that's different than, hey, I fell off the unicycle. You know what I need to do is make sure that I don't fall off the unicycle again.
Yeah.
And I think we should help one another to mitigate one kind of failure versus the other. And I guess failure is maybe the wrong word for it too, right?
Like, I was being dramatic and saying failure, but I don't know, just to let yourself do stuff that you don't know how to do and that you're going to do badly or not be able to do it all and keep going. I have a history with struggling with perfectionism, and so one of the things that happens with people who have perfectionistic tendencies is you don't do stuff because you're so afraid of making a mistake. Well, mistake is probably the good word. Like, mistakes are what bring you toward a new level of awareness. And so it's very sad to be governed by the fear of making mistakes when that can be the vehicle that's most likely to help move you in a new direction and open up new discoveries to you and to be able to do new things. So there you have it.
Yeah, because I do think that a mistake is the kind that you pack up and you carry along with you because it's going to help you and shape you in the future. Like you don't want to leave that behind.
Yep.
And then there's people who dwell on them, right? Like they can remember everything. I'm in this interaction right now, and someone wrote to me about something and said, hey, if we do this thing, then this other person wants to make sure that you don't do the thing you did that one last time. If we do this thing. And I'm like, I totally don't remember what that thing is I did. And they're like, oh, it was really a big deal. Like it was truly memorable. And I'm waiting to find out what it is because I'm like, I don't know. Like I just move on from stuff really quickly. Like I totally forget.
I know you do. It's interesting to be in relationship with somebody who forgets like you, because you just forget stuff. And it's like, wow, he doesn't remember all that stuff. Okay. I mean, it is what it is.
Is it normally the stuff you're thinking of? Is it things that where somehow I was a failure? Is that all I do? Do I only block out my own failings?
No, you just don't hang on to stuff.
Yeah, at all. It's really I
mean,
think it's pre-Alzheimer's.
Fascinating. I find it I think your memory is one of the more fascinating, because most people remember certain kinds of things and forget certain kinds of things. But you seem to just let go of. I think you hang on to certain kinds of ideas and content that are really, really important to you. I'm sure, you have memories. You have things you remember. But I think you let go of.
Who are you?
I know, exactly.
Have we met before?
I know.
Yeah, that
There's
skips
so
like
many
Mr. Short-Term Memory.
When I've been with somebody who said to you, oh, I remember you said blah, blah, blah. And you're like, oh, that sounds like something I'd say. Like.
Oh, yeah. I have no memory at all.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I mean, maybe I said this on the show, but I was at a restaurant in Kansas City with a friend of mine from North Carolina, and we're eating at this restaurant, and I said to him, I really like this place. He goes, well, you said that last time we were here a couple of years ago. I'm like, seriously, we ate at this restaurant? And this is Tim Condor. He really said, you ordered the same thing, and we sat at the same table. Like, and I'm like, really?
It's all new.
It is trippy to me. I don't know. And so I think people sort of navigate in memories in different ways, because there's a lot of studies going on trying to help us to figure out why we remember things.
Yeah.
And it seems to me that it's how people process failure or struggle or mistakes or loss or any of this stuff is connected somehow to how one organizes or manages or re-accesses memories. Because really failures it's a memory thing in some ways, right? Like it's if one doesn't have reflection on that, then what, what's the significance of it? I mean, I guess unless it's sort of a learned skill that you, kind of a subconscious kind of skill, like where people learn how to do things over and over because they've refined their skill, so they made a mistake and then fixed it or whatever. But that seems really different than the kind of internal narratives that people say, but I'm going to do this or I'm not going to do that because of failure. That's really a way of remembering, isn't it? I mean, it's yeah, that's intriguing. So really, I guess the way we conjure up or create or generate our response to failure or frustration or struggle or loss or something is really it's kind of a memory thing.
Yeah, it's a lot of it, and we can make ourselves suffer. Well, I hadn't really thought of it either. We just talked about it, but it's interesting, like how we choose and what we choose to hang on to and what we let go of. I mean, you seem to just be very okay with just letting go, and I don't know if you could remember all the things if you
let God.
It's the day of spiritual platitudes. That's our pre-Thanksgiving.
That one has just been very close to me.
Oh, shut up. I can't take it.
That's a good one. Let go
and
let God.
Oh, it just, yeah.
I know there's people that truly is meaningful for them.
But our memories
I want them to be
get
my
us
friends.
into trouble. These memories and fixating and letting go.
Or lack of.
But lack of memory gets us into trouble too. And so, like, sometimes I don't know how I just assume you forget every interaction I've ever had with you. I never ever assume you remember anything. It's easier. And then if you remember something, that's groovy. But it's better than, I mean, I don't know how the people you live with do it. I'm assuming you remember those things.
Why? Because here's the funny thing. I think when one has a failing, faulty, almost neurologically
I'm not
broken
saying it's a faulty
memory.
thing.
No, I am saying that. When one has a memory like that, I have to tell myself, oh yeah, I don't always remember stuff. But I think when I'm remembering, I think I'm remembering everything. Like, right? It's not like I'm like, oh, that thing there, I forgot that. Like, you don't know what you don't remember, right? It's
right.
so no. I sort of go through life as if I've remembered everything. It's not like I'm, I mean, I remember, I interact with names. I mean, I have the regular kind of reorganizing.
Yeah, you remember people and faces.
I mean, I still have to tell myself that spelling the word receive is E before I, but that's just, I mean, I got to sound it out every time like a second grader. But generally speaking, I've got but I know little tasks and little things like, oh, I think I've done this before, or I've bought tools. I've got tools, and I'm like, dang, I've got another one of those. Hey, that's Joan Steffen. Joan's going to be joining us. That's Victoria. Hold on a second, Victoria. You're knocking the room down. We're going to be back here on Doug Badger Radio here after the break. And so those of you who are listening live, just stick with us. We've got friends busting in. So stick with us here, and we'll be back here after the break with Joan Steffen.